So to set the scene, Martti, you were the earliest collaborator with Satoshi. In the interim, you and Satoshi keeping sort of Bitcoin alive.
There was not much Bitcoin community or anyone to talk about it. Less than 10 people or so in the first year. And suddenly you were unable to read all the new forum posts. Just all these moments over the years. Recently the White House Bitcoin Strategic Reserve announcement. Something I wouldn't have imagined in 2009.
Do you still feel like we are early?
Archie.
So to set the scene, Martti, you were one of the, I guess you were the earliest collaborator with Satoshi, and you also mined a whole bunch of Bitcoin on your laptop from a very early point of view, point in time. It was something, it's been reported in the range of about 50,000, 55,000.
Yeah.
And then you sold a bunch, I guess, to create some kind of price reference. Or it maybe not to create a price preference, but that's in fact what it did. And at some other point in time when Bitcoin had gained some more momentum and value, as a 22-year-old, you thought it was an opportune time to actually, if I can buy an apartment for myself at such a young age, what a fantastic opportunity that is, right? And so that's what you did then. A lot of people seem to look back on Laszlo, and I guess, they don't know your story as well. Maybe they should. As a kind of thing that should be looked back upon as with regret. And I can understand from a financial point of view, but from my point of view, I'm so grateful that there were people like you who did that because it helped kickstart and gain momentum for Bitcoin. So what Laszlo did, I think that's like a legendary thing. And what you did also, for some reason, it's less celebrated or less known. I guess an apartment has less meme power than two pizzas, right?
Yeah.
But
I guess.
It was also, I think, a legendary move to kickstart Bitcoin's sort of value in a commercial sense. How do you look back on that decision to sell your Bitcoin for an apartment? Do you still have the apartment? Is my first question, and then we can cover the rest.
I don't have that exact same apartment, but actually in the neighboring house I do have a larger place. Family place.
Nice.
Yeah, I wasn't intending to sell all. I intended to sell like half or a bit more. But then I was unemployed for a while. Finding a new job took longer than expected, so had to sell, unfortunately, the most of the remaining stash that I had. Well, since then I've bought some again. Some of my savings in Bitcoin. That's been nice. Maybe it's kind of a fail being in Bitcoin for such a long time and not being not being more rich. But maybe that was not the point.
I don't think it was.
Yeah.
Like, I read a quote from you that it's more important to be part of something that's much larger than you. And that's exactly how I feel. I mean, obviously I've had the opportunity. It's cliched because, Michael Saylor has said it so many times that Bitcoin has given hope to so many people, including me. It's given me a renewed sense of direction, hope. It's added prosperity. I'm not a rich guy, but I'm richer than I was before I started. And it's given me the opportunity to build a business that I didn't have before. And I didn't have that direction as well. And when I started this, I quickly realized this is just so much greater and more profound than my financial circumstances alone, which is nicely improving. But it's humbling to see how profound this whole movement is and the change that's being affected. That I do agree with your comment that it's really important to be part of something that's greater than yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
It's humbling. It gives you some perspective, and I think it adds so much value to purpose beyond just accumulating wealth, which we're going to do anyway if we're productive enough in society, right? It's not whether you have $1 billion or a few million and be a part of something. Does that matter too much? I'm not sure it does, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not too late to keep stacking sats.
It's not too late. Do you still feel like we're early? So you were almost a day one, right? Like I don't know. After Satoshi sent that email to the what do you call it again, to the newsletter, at least the mailer?
Mailing list, cypherpunks.
Yeah, that mailing list. So how long after that did you get in touch with him?
I think it was end of April that year. So it was a bit later, like, I don't know, when was it announced? January or something?
Something like that. January, when I think it was launched in January, but as in like the protocol was launched in January.
Yeah, the white paper was the
before
previous
that.
year.
Yeah, I can't remember the date for the white paper, but it might have been like a month or two earlier or something like that. And so, do you still feel like we are early?
Yeah, I do. Such a small percentage of global wealth is still in Bitcoin, and I think it will be more. Like, for instance, real estate, which is often just a store of value, protection from inflation. Like, I just retweeted Safety in Amu's comment on this. Like,
about the ethics of using real estate as a store of value, which then pushes out families and makes them unable to actually develop a sense of safety and security to then have children. Yeah,
absolutely. And maybe some of the fiat architecture also somehow comes from the fiat money and how it affects the real estate market.
When we look back on some of the musings of the early Bitcoiners on the forums, we see how Hal Finney, for example, was projecting the total addressable market and what that could mean if Bitcoin were to attract a certain amount of capital. When you were around and people were having those conversations, did you perceive them as something that could realistically be achieved back then, or was it just fanciful discussion just like intellectual discussion for the sake of, passing time or just engaging in conversation? Because it just seems like, when you got something that is yet to have even transactional value, let alone some sort of commercial application. And here we are, like highly intelligent people, no doubt, and, rooted in reality and all the rest of that, solving real world problems, but talking about these great fantastical situations where something that was launched months ago is going to take over the global financial system. How was that perceived? Like those scenarios that people were outlining, how did you guys perceive them in the early days? Was that like, this could really happen, or it was just conversation to pass some time?
Yeah, I guess many people realized that this is actually theoretically sound and this could actually happen, but the implications were so incredible that it was really hard to actually imagine. I couldn't have imagined all this. Over the years, Bitcoin has been providing these larger than life moments, kind of very funny and interesting moments that you would not have expected back in 2009. I think 2014 or so, there was some Spice Girl pushing Bitcoin, and that was funny back then. And then there was Senator Schumer talking about Silk Road. That was grim, but kind of interesting. And just all these moments over the years. Recently, the White House Bitcoin Strategic Reserve announcement, something I wouldn't have imagined in 2009.
I heard about Bitcoin around about 2011, and then I found some comments of mine around 2013 on a forum as well. And conceptually, I sort of understood it. I get it. Yeah, like compare it to gold, and like why should gold have value beyond the fact that there's just this really long, many thousand-year-old social custom around it. And issues like intrinsic value. What is intrinsic value anyway? Because these are arguments that would come up in the early days of Bitcoin, and even to its detractors now, they still bring up concepts like intrinsic value as a way to detract from Bitcoin's real value, or to undermine its value. But I never did make an allocation because as much as I thought it could be possible, I just looked at it as like, oh yeah, it's another one of these sort of projects. Because I had a background in payments. I'd worked in banking up until that point. And I just thought, oh yeah, it's just another one of these sort of electronic cash type projects, and didn't really look further into it until many, many years later. And even in 2020, I just got into Bitcoin as a trade to start with. And I was just watching it daily. And I'm like, you know what? I should get involved in the community somehow. And that's how I got involved. But like, what distinguished Bitcoin for you when you came across it the first time that made you, what seems like very quickly understand that, oh, this is kind of different from what's come before it? Was it upon reading the white paper, or was it through conversations with other people who were also sort of thinking, yeah, this is kind of different?
There was not much Bitcoin community or anyone to talk about it. Well, I was not on the Cypherpunks mailing list, and I set up the Bitcoin forums later that year, and it grew pretty slowly. Like there were just a few of us, like less than 10 people or so in the first year. So you pretty much needed to figure it out by yourself.
It was a group chat, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spoke to Adam back, and he's famously featured in the white paper about what those early days were like and what it took to actually keep Bitcoin going. Because he famously sort of noticed it, read about it, was kind of interested, but then disappeared for some time. Like he went off and did other things in his corporate life. He had a corporate career, and then came back to it later in, I think, 2013. But in the interim, it was you and Satoshi keeping sort of Bitcoin alive, trying to keep it alive. What did you have to do to get the attention of the initial users? Because whenever you start up anything, whether it's Bitcoin or it's an app, the hardest thing to do is to just get anybody to pay attention to it, because everyone's got their own existing interests, right? And from my understanding in talking to Adam, Bitcoin, it wasn't like it just made this huge splash and everyone was so amazed and a community just coalesced around it because it was brilliant from day one. It sounded like it had to be nurtured, and there was quite a lot of effort in trying to get people to talk about it initially. Like, can you tell us about those early days of just keeping it alive as a project?
Maybe I was not too much involved in the marketing. I think Bitcoin just grew organically in the beginning. I mentioned it to people in my conversations. There was an EFF, Electronic Freedom Foundation chairman visiting Finland and giving a talk, and I marketed Bitcoin to him after his talk, maybe 2011 maybe or so. But I was just focusing on the code and on my Bitcoin exchange later. I didn't do too much of marketing. I guess it grew organically. At some point it was mentioned on some, I don't recall, some news aggregator, some like tech news aggregator, maybe Hacker News. I'm not sure. And then it started growing pretty intensely, like so many more signups on the forums.
Do you remember at which point that was? Was it after it was published on that, whichever aggregator it was? And so what was it, kind of just like flatline growth, incremental 1, 2 here and there, and then what? So did you feel that there was a kind of a spike in membership to the forums, or how did you gauge that increased interest?
Yeah, there were some of these kind of media events or some these larger inflows of people at times. You could see the user counts on the Bitcoin forum grow, and at one point we had an IRC channel, and you would see more people there. And suddenly you were unable to read all the new forum posts.
Really? That would have been quite a moment, actually. You feel like you've actually got a community, a thriving community, when you can't spend the time to read all the contributions. And perhaps, I guess a key indicator would be when you started getting a lot of junk contributions as well. It's like, yeah, we discussed that months ago. Like we've solved for that, or we've discussed that, it's irrelevant. Yeah. You get that in all sorts of forums. But At what point did you think we might have escape velocity from a community point of view? Was it after that Hacker News publication, or was it sometime later?
Yeah, I think that was such a moment. Then there was WikiLeaks. We kicked the hornet's nest, and the swarm was headed towards us, like Satoshi said. And then there was Silk Road, I guess.
When was WikiLeaks and when was Silk Road that really took off? Do you remember the dates for that? The years? It doesn't have to be dates, but
WikiLeaks, I guess, 2011, before Satoshi left.
Yeah, and WikiLeaks one was around about the same time, and not long after. WikiLeaks, excuse me.
Silk Road.
Silk Road, excuse me. Yeah.
Silk Road could have been. I don't quite recall. Could have been 2011, 12, 13.
The Silk Road was the first product market fit for Bitcoin, wasn't it? It was. I mean, it did a lot of things. It gave it a commercial purpose.
Yeah.
It was a means of exchange immediately.
Yes.
At what point did people start thinking about Bitcoin as a store of value, do you think? Because initially it was most of the use cases were for Silk Road. I don't know that people were really using it. I know WikiLeaks had the donations as well. So, means of exchange as well in terms of supporting an organization. But at what point did that flip more towards store of value? Do you recall a moment where you think, I think the consensus is shifting towards store of value more than means of exchange?
Well, I guess GPU miners appeared maybe 2010. Lots of my normie friends were mining Bitcoins in their student dorm.
A GPU miner is what you would do on a laptop or a desktop or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And then came the ASICs, the application-specific Bitcoin integrated circuits, like the efficient Bitcoin miners that we have today also. I guess it emerged as a number go up technology around that time. Maybe not like philosophically a store of value thing, but many people just saw the value going up and held onto their coins or didn't.
I guess at that point, I would speculate that they just saw that as a function of adoption in and of itself, rather than how we're looking at it now as something that's going to suck out the monetary premium from the entire asset base of wealth, which is an interesting thing. So I can already see like a gradual development. As someone sort of missed out on the early years of Bitcoin, I can almost see that transformation, the evolution of the narrative as well, from like, let's just find a way to use it, to then just number go up and there's incredible speculative bubble. Was it in 2011, 12, 13, where there were just fantastic gains, where Bitcoin was just finding its way to product market fit. And that adoption alone drove that. And then we started seeing through probably like 15, 16, 17, where you just saw, that wasn't a one-off. It sort of validated the fact that it wasn't a bubble. Bubble rises like a souffle, once pops and it's all over.
Yeah.
But the second time that happens, you start to get some sort of validation, some staying power, sort of anti-fragility, to use a term that's been popularized. But I found that notion, once I understood it, applied to Bitcoin, was really quite a profound thing for me, because I did see that Bitcoin gradually got stronger out of every sort of catastrophic event, every kind of attack, every bear market, which, I consider that a kind of sort of catastrophic event, because it invites a lot of speculation about the durability of Bitcoin. So the first time it happened, it's like, well, is this over? That's and the second time you're like, well, this happened again. Like first time it could be a fluke. It could be a fluke and it could just be all over.
Yeah.
But it just kept persisting, and that really caught my attention.